So the Nintendo Switch 2, the big topic about this that's been going on is the power. How powerful is this thing? Is it comparable to a PS4? Is it comparable to a Steam Deck? Is it closer to like an Xbox Series S? Can it hold down with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X? Everybody's talking about all these things. I want to try to break it down as best as I can. I've been delaying this video as long as I can to try to gather as much information and thoughts and try to be as thorough with this as I possibly can. So I'm going to try to be concise, but there's a lot to talk about as well. So just forgive me if it's a little bit of a lengthier video. If you do enjoy this, please do consider leaving a like. Really helps the channel. Subscribe for more good stuff. We do a variety of Nintendo-based content, from news videos and videos like this to guides and walkthroughs, you know, whether it's like tutorials of how to do something in The Legend of Zelda or whatever, or Pokemon, how to evolve certain Pokemon. So I like to do all of it here on the channel. So if you enjoy Nintendo content, you're in the right place. Let's go ahead and jump straight into this. I don't want to waste any time. Let's start with the Nintendo specs page. I want to start off by saying that this is not something that is just raw specs. Okay, we're gonna look at the things on paper, but at the end of the day, I think there's some Nintendo magic going on behind here, and I'll explain why that is. Because this thing is doing things that you would not imagine it would be able to do based on the raw specs. Now, the problem with this is we don't have any, so if you look at the GPU and CPU, we don't have any sort of information or details on this thing. This is where speculation kind of kicks in. All we know is that it's a custom processor made by NVIDIA. I made a video on this already. I don't want to go into that because it's going to take up precious time. But basically, NVIDIA said that they're claiming this thing is 10 times more powerful, the Switch 2 that is, than the Switch 1. Is that true? I mean, I believe it, and I'll explain why I believe that. But if we go through all this, I want to quickly mention one thing before we get into like the actual power, because it's still a part of the experience. And at the end of the day, the experience is what matters the most, right? And that is the screen. So if you look at the screen, same kind of touch screen, by the way, as the Switch 1. I think it's about like an inch bigger than the previous Switch. It was about just like 8 inches essentially. Wide color gamut. LCD screen. Now everybody's like, oh, LCD screen. No, that's not very good. You know, like, you know, OLED. First of all, they might come out with an OLED version later on down the road. That would have made it more expensive. OLED screens are pricey. But here's the thing about this thing. It does 1080p, where the previous Switch did 720p, and it does HDR10 support, which is adding a lot more kind of brightness, better like lights and darks and stuff like that, and everything looks more vibrant. If you actually look at a comparison of this thing with the OLED, it's insane. There's a bunch of pictures online. I'll try to find one. I think the best one I found was from, I think his name is Paris, I believe is his name, from pronouncing his name right. You know, he did one where it was a nice comparison of the OLED versus this, but everyone who's seen it, they're like, man, the Switch 2's screen is vibrant. It's colorful. It's very nice. And you can kind of tell through pictures. It's kind of hard to see, you know, through pictures. It's easier to see in person, and I would assume. I've not got to see it in person, unfortunately, but from what I've seen with many pictures comparing it, yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, you can still see the OLED has a slight edge in vibrancy and colors. You know, it's a little richer colors, but it's pretty good. I mean, this for an LCD screen is very good. And again, HDR10 support. It has variable refresh rate up to 120 hertz, meaning we can get 120 FPS out of this thing, which is insane. Handheld or docked, which is incredible. Video output, of course, we're getting 4K resolution, 60 FPS in TV mode. It supports 120 FPS at either 1080p or 1440s. That's 2K resolutions. So for example, you can do, I think it's 1080p, 120 FPS for Metroid Prime 4, which looks gorgeous, by the way, that game, where you can do 4K 60, which is really, really nice. And again, supports HDR10, 1080p resolution, and handheld mode. So that's the official stuff. If we go over to Polygon, this is just one out of many. You can see right here, if I highlight this, they are speculating based on analysts and stuff. According to a leaked details gleaned from the console's motherboard, it supposedly is using a Tegra T239 processor, which according to some analysts saying it would put on par with PS4 and Xbox One. This is on paper. I gotta stress this again. This is on paper. Why do I say that? It's some weird stuff going on behind the curtains, man. We're gonna dig more and more. Just bear with me, man. Listen, bear with me. Leaks suggest that the Switch 2 will employ upscaling technology that could boost 720p resolution, 4K visuals when docked, using machine learning techniques. It was confirmed that there's some kind of AI technology in here. NVIDIA confirmed it in their blog post that there's some kind of AI upscaling sort of stuff going on here. Again, there's some weird technology behind here that's not what we're used to seeing. NVIDIA also mentioned DLSS, We don't know which version of DLSS. We also know ray tracing. They mentioned the Switch 2 has, but again, we don't know which version of ray tracing. But either way, it's some interesting stuff. Now, Digital Foundry did a bunch of stuff. Whether you trust their commentary or not it doesn't even matter. You can put their videos on mute, and what I'm about to say is just based on their comparisons. Now, I do think they've been at this for so long that it's worth considering what they have to say, of course, but they have some really good stuff. I'll try to link all their videos down in the description below, and everything else that I'm going to be sourcing in this video in the description. Might be a lot of links, but basically with them, there's a couple different things. They compared Mario Kart 8 Deluxe to Mario Kart World. And when you compare those two, man, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe looks good, right? When we first seen Mario Kart World, you're like, wow, this looks really, really good. But I don't know if we realized how significantly better it looked than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. If you see the comparisons, I'll try to throw like a screenshot or something up on screen. But again, I suggest looking at the raw footage on Digital Foundry's YouTube channel, because it's way better to look at the raw footage than a compressed image. But still, in the compressed image, you'll still see, to some extent, way better lighting. Way better lighting. Just better visuals, reflections, textures, draw distance. Like, everything is significantly nicer and better. It's actually surprising, especially when you see shots of like the ice and stuff. Really good. The other thing Digital Foundry went into is comparisons of a bunch of different games, right? So they compared like third-party games as well, and different things like that. This is stuff that they've compared, Final Fantasy VII, which we'll talk about in a second. A lot of stuff here. People were seeing the comparisons of Final Fantasy VII. They're like, oh, well, they're comparing it to the PS4 and then the Switch 2. And at first, when you do that, it looks night and day, because it is. Because the thing is, Switch 2 is using Intergrade, Final Fantasy VII Intergrade, which was not released on the PS4, if I might add. Now, why wouldn't they not release it on the PS4 if there was already a large install base on the PS4? Something worth considering, probably because the PS4 was not able to actually pull it off, because they made a bunch of better, it wasn't just the story DLC, they made a bunch of better lighting and visuals and different things like that. So with this Intergrade expansion or whatever, there was a lot of visual improvements kind of brought in. So when you do see the side-by-side of the PS4 and the Nintendo Switch 2, that's essentially what you're seeing. You're basically seeing the non-Intergrade versus the Intergrade more than anything. But it is worth noting, like I said, that Intergrade never released on the PS4, and you would assume that, it's just something that the PS4 was not capable of. And I'm going to argue that in a minute with another game once we get there, that the PS4 was not capable of, based on some other stats on another third-party game. We'll get there in a second. They also compared Hogwarts Legacy. When there's like one shot that you can really compare with Hogwarts Legacy, but even in there, versus the PS4, the one on the Switch 2 looks significantly better. It doesn't look amazing, way better than the Switch version, that's for sure. But definitely better than the PS4. Again, if we're comparing it to the PS4 itself. They also had Elden Ring that they showed. Again, it was like only one shot. Elden Ring, again, it's like one specific shot. The textures and the visuals look a little soft in the Switch 2 version, but it still looks really, really good, to say the very least. Now, we get to some other games, and the games that I've seen people compare the most. One of them is Street Fighter 6. Now, Street Fighter 6 looks really, really, really good. It's a little bit more of a basic game. So it's a fighting game, right? There's not like a whole lot going on you got like background, skybox, different things like that, character models. And people try to compare it to the PS5. It's not quite the PS5. Let's be honest. It's not there. But I think it's significantly better than the PS4 and the Xbox One and all that. It looks really, really good. The textures are actually surprisingly really good. The character models are surprisingly very, very nice. The character models themselves, some people would argue, are closer to the Xbox. Maybe closer to the Xbox Series S. Maybe not in terms of shadowing and different things like that. But it's like when you're just kind of in the middle of like playing, it's so marginally different compared to like, at least the Xbox Series S, let's say, that it's almost hard to see. And again, the one thing to note is that a lot of the comparisons online are comparing with, compressed footage. Some of the footage that Digital Foundry has, they got, it's like a press kind of media kit from Nintendo. So it's like the highest possible resolution. So it is worth noting that as well, in all of this, because when you see a lot of other comparisons, they're more kind of compressed, but still, I think there's still a place for them. and whatnot. Speaking about compressed, we're going to get to some more third-party stuff in a minute, specifically one that I really want to focus on because I think is a big one. But they were talking about, the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and how that compares. I think when you look at the raw footage on Treehouse Live, and I'll show some of it on screen, but it's still not going to be the same if you watch it on Nintendo's YouTube channel, which is going to be even better. And again, at 4K resolution. But it's significantly better. The textures are way better. There's more detail. If you actually pay attention, way more reflections. Everything plays way better. The Korok Forest is smooth on the Switch 2. It was super laggy on the Switch 1, unfortunately, dipping into like the 20 FPS range. Metroid Prime 4, it's insane. It looks phenomenally different. The version on the Switch 2 looks really, really, really good. It looks, full of just really crisp visuals and vibrant colors, and everything's buttery smooth, and it looks really, really good. Some people try to say, they try to compare it like Halo 4 to Xbox 360, which I think is like, no, man, no way. I don't see that. I don't think it's comparable to Halo 4. And again, the comparison to Halo is because it's, sci-fi shooter. Is it as quite up there as like Halo 5? I don't know, maybe not, but again, it's different developers, different techniques of developing, different art styles. Just because it's a sci-fi shooter doesn't mean it's like a one-for-one comparison. So it's kind of hard to compare it to a different game altogether, I would say, and that's kind of my argument. But if you just look at Metroid Prime 4, it shows you the potential of what this console could do, I think. And we're just kind of scratching the surface here, guys. Okay, let's get into the one that I really want to focus on a little bit more, and that is Cyberpunk 2077, because I think that's kind of the big one. There is one more I want to kind of mention in passing after this, but Cyberpunk 2077, this is where I was saying earlier, the whole paper thing doesn't matter. PS4 Pro, okay, PS4 Pro. This is a while back that Digital Foundry did a comparison of the PS4 to the PS4 Pro, Cyberpunk 2077 frame rate test and all that. PS4 Pro Dynamic is running around 1080p, and it was dipping into like the low 20s in their comparison. And so it's kind of one of those things where like, okay, that's a pretty significant dip compared to the Switch version. If we actually go to over to Nintendo Life, they have some quotes from CD Projekt Red. So one thing that they noted is that they're still improving the performance, but they're targeting 1080p docked, 720p in handheld mode with 30 to 40 FPS, depending on the mode, of course, performance versus quality. Let me quickly point something out. They're getting 1080p docked, 720p handheld, 30 to 40 FPS, and they're still improving the performance. This is an early build. It's still going to get even better by the time this comes out June 5th. Now, everybody who's gotten hands-on with Cyberpunk 2077 on the Switch 2, they've all said the same thing. Wow, this is mind-blowing. It is really, really good. It is beautiful. It is crisp. It is impressive. Now, is it like PS5 or something? No, obviously not. But here's the thing. Everybody's comparing, now to the Steam Deck and the PS4. Compared to the PS4, in docked mode, 1080p, it can target 30 to 40 FPS. The PS4 Pro at 1080p was dipping in like the 20s. Okay, this already to me says, hey, the PS4 Pro compared to the Switch 2, and again, this is just one game, of course. There's optimization. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, but this is one of the things where I say the Switch 2 is definitely outperforming the PS4 Pro. I don't think it's on par with the PS4, personally, just from this. But again, this goes into like optimization. It is worth noting, as far as I recall, Phantom Liberty was not released on previous generations either. It's like again, why? There's a large install base. Why would you not as a third-party developer? It makes no sense unless the PS4 couldn't handle it. PS4 Pro is already struggling with Cyberpunk 2077 with just the vanilla-based game. So, Switch 2, it's coming with Phantom Liberty packed in, if I might add. And so again, 30 to 40 FPS. It's, again, to me, this says that the Switch 2, forget what it says on paper. On paper, it might sound like it's comparable to the PS4, but there's some weird magic going behind the scenes with NVIDIA and Nintendo, whatever they're doing, some technology that we just don't know about. There's something, there's something that's going on that is allowing developers to get the most out of this thing. And from other reports, third-party developers are really excited to bring their games to the Switch 2. They're all saying that it's very easy to develop for as well. So like all the stars have aligned for this one. It's just perfect. Okay, now that's the PS4. What about the Steam Deck? Because everybody's comparing it. Oh, the Steam Deck this, Steam Deck that. Okay, well, let's see the Steam Deck. Steam Deck is obviously handheld. It's 900p which is, you know, if we're taking the Switch 2, Cyberpunk 2077 in handheld would be 720p. The Switch 2, of course, is capable of 1080p, 120 FPS in handheld, but for Cyberpunk 2077, it's 720p, 30 to 40 FPS, depending if your performance or quality mode. The Steam Deck is about 900p. It is about 40 to 45 FPS, give or take, as far as my research has taken me. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's roughly what it is. Marginally better FPS. Slightly, even more marginally better resolution, 180 pixels. If I'm doing, 180 pixels, right? 720 to 900. It's ballpark, close same. Yeah, a little sharper. Now, a lot of people that have been doing the comparisons are comparing the docked version of the Switch 2 to the Steam Deck, which is obviously not as fair. But in that, it is worth noting that like the visuals were a lot cleaner. They were a lot more sharp. They were a lot just better. The textures were just better. Everything was just better. And so just in that, you know, if that translates also to the handheld mode is worth noting. What's interesting is the Steam Deck is also getting 20 watts of power, which is double what the Switch 2 is getting. Switch 2 in handheld mode is getting 10 watts of power. So it has double the power and it's getting only marginally better, you know, frame rate. And again, you know, maybe there's something in this that I'm missing, but from just kind of my kind of trying to piece everything together, you got Switch 2, 10 watts, 720p, pulling 30 to 40 FPS. You got the Steam Deck, slightly better resolution of 900p, double the wattage, 20 watts. And for those who don't know, the extra wattage allows the CPU to basically pull more frames and everything like that. So 900p, pulling 40 to 45 FPS. I mean, that's probably what I would expect, honestly, for like an extra 10 watts of power is probably like an extra like few FPS. It's not going to be massive. You know, I did a lot of testing. I quickly, you know, I tested the ROG Ally X for a while, and I did a lot of like tweaking and stuff with that device for a while. I ended up returning it because I just couldn't justify the price. But with that, I kind of tweaked it a lot, and I've kind of seen a lot about, you know, that sort of the power and what the FPS difference is and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it's marginally different. Now, yes, you know, on paper, you say, well, the Steam Deck's better. You know, it's 900p and it's getting a few extra FPS, but it's marginal. It's comparable. That's the thing. It's very comparable. And from what I've seen, Cyberpunk 2077 looks like it's running better, visually speaking. It looks nicer for some reason from what we've seen. Again, might be because it's docked mode on the Switch 2. What about Star Wars? This one's worth mentioning because Digital Foundry's kind of left surprised, to say the very least. I'm just going off My Nintendo News because it just writes the quote for us, so we don't have to go watch the video. What they said about Star Wars is interesting because Star Wars Outlaws was announced for the Switch 2. This game is currently only available on PS5, Xbox Series X, and Series S and PC. It's not on last gen. I don't think last gen would even be able to handle it. And even on current gen, it's kind of, you know, buggy. A little. Well, it was. They probably patched it by now. Now, in a recent video, Digital Foundry technology editor Richard, I don't want to say his last name, Ledbetter, had the following to say about the inclusion. He says, I think this one's quite surprising, to be honest, to Star Wars Outlaws. This is like a technologically demanding game on the new Snowdrop engine for Ubisoft Massive. The concept that it's running on this class of hardware is pretty mind-blowing, I'd say. If that doesn't tell you what this is capable of, I mean, I don't know what does. It doesn't make any sense. Digital Foundry contributor Oliver Mackenzie chimed in stating that Star Wars Outlaws, a really exciting port, possibly an impossible port, if you will. He does not even think, like, on paper, he's like, there's no way this game should be on the Switch 2, is what it sounds like. Again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but this is what it sounds like to me. That's because it's such a large game and utilizing features like ray tracing. Plus, there isn't, say, a PS4 edition, while other third-party titles like Elden Ring, Street Fighter 6 did come to last-gen consoles. Very interesting. And then another one, Digital Foundry video producer Alex Battaglia stated Star Wars Outlaws is by far the most technically ambitious game that we've seen mentioned as being ported to Switch 2 so far. I wanted to mention this because I think this kind of shows, like, again, on paper, makes no sense. You can't take the, like, oh, well, on paper, the Switch 2 this, or on paper, the Switch 2 that. Because on paper, yeah, you would think so. But there's something going on technologically that we don't know about behind the scenes that is just making this thing better than you would expect. All that to say, I would say that at the end of the day, it's all about the experience. And the experience sounds like a great one. If it's comparable to a Steam Deck, people are like, well, I already got a Steam Deck. Listen, man, you got Nintendo Switch 2 exclusives, right? You got some really cool functionality, right, with the Joy-Cons and then, you know, the mouse functionality, and then the dock, you know, being, you know, 4K resolution and stuff, and all that, and it's like ballpark the same price as a Steam Deck, and yet you're getting way more out of the package. You're getting, again, you know, but again, it's not a one for one. I mean, Nintendo sits in its own category. The Nintendo always sits in its own little kind of market. You know, it's never really comparable with anything else. You're like, well, we try to compare to this, it's like apples to oranges. It's impossible to really compare it to anything. Sounds like it's definitely more powerful than a PS4 Pro from what I can gather. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it as powerful as an Xbox Series S? Maybe not. You know, in terms of like shadows and stuff, shadowing and stuff especially is probably better on the Xbox Series S. It might be marginal. I don't know. It's too early to kind of really say. And compared to a Steam Deck, it's comparable. It's comparable. It can hold weight with the Steam Deck for sure. And it's exciting because this is just the very beginning. We don't even know the full. I mean, we're just scratching the surface. We haven't yet seen the full potential that can be drawn out of this thing once developers really get hands-on. And a lot of third-party developers don't even have dev kits yet for some reason. Nintendo just sent some dev kits, I guess, to certain companies, but not all of them yet. So there's a lot of third-party developers that don't have these yet. And I'm expecting to see a lot more come to the Switch too, you know? Like, I would expect Marvel Rivals, which has been a massive hit, obviously, make its way over to the Switch 2 and some other, you know, big games. I do wonder, one game that I've been thinking about is, like, you know, it's completely random, but Path of Exile 2. You know, it's mostly a PC game that also has console versions, but I wonder if they bring that over, because I think they could pull it off. It maybe need a little bit slight better optimization, but one of the things, again, that's being reported is that devs are really excited to develop for the Nintendo Switch 2, like third-party developers are saying it's very easy to develop for. So there's a lot going on this thing. I'm not going to rant too much longer. We're just going to wrap it up because it's been a very long video, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. All that to say, like I said, I don't think you can just go off of like the paper, you know, just on paper. I think it's clear, you know, what the facts are in this for the most part, but again, it's apples to oranges at the end of the day, and it's also too early to really say, but it's looking very good, guys. It's looking very good, and I think the Switch 2 is proving to be a very sweet deal, and I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see the potential, and I cannot wait to see the future. What I really need is native on cartridge, okay? Whatever, it could be the game key card, I guess, but I'd rather just the physical, like all on the cartridge, all the Kingdom Hearts games, including Kingdom Hearts 3. I need that. Guys, thanks for watching. Keep it locked for more. Subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Dislike it if you just disliked it, and let me know what I can do to improve the content in the future. Till the next one, game on. Thanks for watching.